Now, I would have to agree that Ireland does have to take responsibility for the society it created. And yes, I'm going to argue that the Constitution represented that oppression, and that is why we should indeed burn it. I'm here to propose the motion and to take the only chance that I will ever have to lecture David Kenny about the Constitution. And as well, I would like to say to Mr. Harry Hogan that I was raised properly, watching Michael Collins on repeat every day after school. Now, throw it at me.
Where's the sin?
Now, I will put two reasons to this House why we should burn this relic of a bygone era. My first point will be that this piece of paper does not reflect the Ireland of the 21st century. There has been a social revolution. However, much work, and I would argue too much work, has yet to be done. We must start afresh, provide a clean slate for the next generation, free of the shackles that Bunreacht and HÉireann has left us generation and the generations that have gone before us with. Secondly, this document, I find, is not fit to protect the fundamental rights that democracy needs. We need such protections because otherwise we fall victim to an overreaching state or even a simple majority. Now, I'll return to my first point quickly. Obviously, Ireland now is in stark contrast to the one that's enshrined this constitution. Thank God, funnily enough. And obviously much has happened since then. Much to remember, and obviously much that we would like to forget, but of course we shouldn't. The last 20 to 30 years of our little island nation has been very significant. Now, the preamble to this constitution is laden with religious language. If it were written today, you'd probably mistake it for that pamphlet you get on Henry Street from the people in the Amish clothes. But it sets the tone for the Constitution. Much of the articles were inspired by orthodox religious teaching. The separation of church and state is essential to a functioning democracy. We are not only a Catholic country. We are not only a Christian country anymore. The ebb and flow of migration has changed the face of Ireland over recent decades to a more multicultural society, and probably for the better. Christian morals have influenced the development of democracy in Europe. I will not contest that, but that does not mean that we should continue to give credence to this religion in the highest form of law in the land. As I said, the separation of church and state is essential. Yes, Mr. Kenny.
Point out to me the parts of the Constitution specifically that are stopping us secularising the state in any manner we wish. What's actually holding us back? Is the fault, not as Kate said, in us rather than in our Constitution?
The preamble to the Constitution set the tone over the last few decades. It is not merely a preamble. It is a symbol of the oppression and is a symbol of the difficulties faced by our society in bygone era. We have removed much of this influence from the Constitution. And I contest this House that if we are not to disenfranchise an increasingly secular youth and not to disenfranchise an increasingly diverse religious population, we should indeed burn this piece of paper, which does not in fact live or breathe, despite the opposition wanting to endow it with some sort of sentience. Frankly, this document has been a force for good. Contraception was mentioned. However, to ignore the fact that it was a tool of oppression is historical revision. We are on the cusp of a new dawn in Ireland. And with the next generation, I hope that they do not see a constitution saturated with outdated definitions of marriage or even blasphemy. Which brings me to my second point. The lack of protection available to the citizens of Ireland. Rights such as freedom of expression are subject to qualifying language that in theory could render it tame. Up until last year, a blasphemy law remained. We do not live in Iran. Now, granted, it was not used often, but that misses the point of an unalienable right. It should never be used. It should never have been used. And I contest that for the whole Constitution, we cannot simply change it with a simple majority. If it doesn't serve everyone, it will serve no one. It does not enshrine the rights of the citizen in indelible ink. The divorce referendum passed by such a small margin. What if it swung the other way? How do we know what could have happened and what could have been? This constitution is not fit to protect any individual from a simple majority. I urge you not to forget the checkered history of this country. Well, maybe dead. But I want you to be proud of what the Irish people have made it, and to enshrine a constitution that truly represents the new and better Ireland. And I look to our friends across the water and see how an ill-informed 51% is tearing a country apart, tearing a parliament apart, and tearing families apart. I urge you to envision a future that does not have the clouds or the shackles of Bunreacht and HÉireann hanging over it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am a fan of theatrics, but Estates and Facilities said that I couldn't bring my lighter in to actually burn it. So I must leave it to the House to carry this motion and to in fact burn the Constitution. Thank you.